A 150-year-old Waco landmark temporarily closed to the public today. City officials say the historic suspension bridge is in need of some repairs and renovations. 6 News reporter Jasmine Caldwell caught up with some people spending time on the bridge today since it could be closed for 2 years. Jasmine?
Well, Leslie, many people call it the heart and soul of the city. The Waco Suspension Bridge was built in 1870, and many people that I spoke to today said they're going to really miss it. Want to know a thing or two about the Waco Suspension Bridge? Photographer Gene Dietrich is who you want to talk to.
That it's been here since the 1870s, and it's one that we used to run the cattle across to market from South Texas.
For years, the bridge served as a Chisholm Trail crossing, and at the time of its completion, it was the longest single-span suspension bridge west of the Mississippi. Before the city closed the suspension bridge Wednesday, Dietrich decided to stop by and mingle with people at the park, something he says he loves to do.
I come down here because I know people from out of state come into Waco and they don't know what's here, and I try to tell them places to go, restaurants around here and other things besides the bridge, but the bridge is the main thing.
The temporary closure is part of a $12.4 million renovation project. The 150-year-old bridge will undergo major renovations to preserve the bridge, which includes the steel cables, decking, railing, and painting.
If it's for a good reason, then yes. If it's not being closed down for permanently, then absolutely. If it's renovations, awesome, because yes, it's certainly a part of Waco.
Something that Dietrich can agree with.
The bridge has been here since the 1870s, and they've just got a lot of work that needs to be done on it.
Now, large parts of Indian Spring Park and Martin Luther King Jr. Park will be closed during renovations. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, the city of Waco will have a groundbreaking ceremony. Reporting live in Waco, Jasmine Caldwell, 6 News.
All right, thanks, Jasmine.